This is a message from the United States Office of National Emergency Response. All citizens are urged to remain calm and return to their homes immediately. As of 1800 hours Eastern Time, civil unrest has escalated in multiple regions across the country. The government is actively working to restore order and protect the safety of all American lives. We urge all groups, militias, and individuals to cease hostile actions. Any further escalation will result in immediate federal response. Failure to comply with these directives may lead to martial law enforcement in affected zones. We do not seek confrontation. We seek unity, dialogue, and peace. This is still your country. But what comes next depends on what you do now. Stay indoors. Avoid travel. Stay off unsecured frequencies. This has been a national emergency transmission. Further updates will follow. They told us it couldn't happen here, that the system was too strong, that democracy, even when bruised, always bounces back. But what they didn't tell us, or maybe what they refused to see, is that collapse doesn't come all at once. It arrives in pieces, quiet, slow, like rot beneath the surface. It started with the economy. Or maybe it started before that, years ago, when people stopped trusting the news, then stopped trusting each other. Inflation didn't just climb, it sprinted. Shelves emptied, rents doubled, and suddenly every paycheck felt like a joke. And while millions struggled to afford basic things, the wealthy disappeared behind private security and digital borders. There were no answers from above, only silence, or worse, empty words and staged optimism. Then came the storms. Fires in California, record floods in Texas, tornadoes ripping through Ohio in December. Entire counties went dark for weeks. FEMA couldn't keep up. State leaders started doing things their own way. First out of necessity, then out of defiance. That's when the fractures became visible. The breaking point? The 2026 elections. Contested results, again. Allegations of manipulation, again. But this time, no one backed down. Half the country didn't recognize the new administration. The other half demanded immediate action against what they called domestic sedition. What followed wasn't a coup. It wasn't a revolution. It was a quiet unraveling. Local police stopped enforcing federal directives in several cities. National Guard units went silent. Militias, long ignored or mocked, began appearing in full gear, controlling roads, guarding neighborhoods, setting up their own checkpoints. Governors from the Northwest issued a joint statement, the Cascadia Declaration, suspending cooperation with Washington until democratic integrity could be assured. That was the moment we stopped being united, at least officially. Within days, coordinated cyber attacks hit power grids in 4 states. Communications failed. Airports shut down. On June 17th, an armed group, no flags, no names, opened fire on a federal convoy in St. Louis. 36 people died. It was never clear who pulled the trigger, and it didn't matter. Retaliation came fast, and with it, the first real taste of war. By June 21st, whole counties were sealed off. Trains stopped running. The internet slowed to a crawl outside of protected zones. People fled cities in waves, not knowing where to go. On the ground, everything became a question of loyalty. To which flag? To which faction? To which version of the truth? That's how it started. Not with a bang, but with silence and suspicion. With neighbors avoiding eye contact, with grocery stores turning into flashpoints, with whispers of who had weapons and who didn't. And when the first explosions were heard in downtown Phoenix and armored vehicles rolled through Atlanta, nobody was surprised anymore. Not really, because deep down, we all knew. This wasn't sudden. This was the conclusion of 1,000 ignored warnings. This was the country coming apart, one thread at a time. Once, the map of the United States was whole. One country, 50 states, clear borders. Now, there is no official map. Only shifting front lines, contested zones, isolated cities, and closed roads. No one talks about states anymore, but about territories, about colors, about who controls what. In the Northwest, the Cascadian Alliance holds power. Oregon, Washington, and parts of Idaho operate as a separate bloc, with their own government, local militia, and strict environmental policies. They call themselves the Repair Zone, promising to rebuild from the ground up without federal influence. They have support from many urban populations, but face direct conflict with rural militias in eastern Washington and northern California, who refuse to recognize the alliance's authority. In the center, what was once flyover country has become a real battlefield. The gray zone, as some call it, stretches from Nebraska to Arkansas. It's an unstable space where borders change weekly. Here operate nameless paramilitary groups, without clear purpose but united by hatred of any authority. Many of these people do not fight for ideas, but for food, fuel, and survival. The South is largely controlled by what is now called the Restoration Front, a conservative coalition that began in Texas and rapidly expanded into Oklahoma, Louisiana, and parts of Florida. They claim to be the true America and refuse any dialogue with the federal government. They have imposed their own laws, tightened social and religious control, and maintain an iron discipline. Beyond the propaganda, infrastructure is better maintained here, but at the cost of freedom. The Northeast, including cities like New York, Boston, and Philadelphia, has become a consolidated federal corridor. It is the last stronghold of the internationally recognized government. Here, the administration tries to maintain an appearance of normalcy under strict martial law. Streets are patrolled by mixed units, access is restricted, and the media is completely controlled. Despite this, tens of thousands flee these overcrowded cities daily, seeking places where rules are not enforced at gunpoint. In the Midwest, areas like Illinois and Missouri are simply divided. Each neighborhood is controlled by different forces, former gangs, local militias, religious groups, even private security corporations. In these regions, there is no central authority, only a fragile balance between chaos and terror. California, once a symbol of progress, is split in two. The South, including Los Angeles and San Diego, is under fragile federal control, but constantly faces revolts and sabotage. The North, however, is dominated by an unstable alliance between tech groups, anarchists, and radical environmentalists who claim that America's future must be borderless, partyless, and moneyless. The Great Lakes region is a mystery. Satellites show intense military activity, but no clear signals emerge. Some say Detroit has formed fully autonomous digital enclaves, powered by cryptocurrencies and governed by algorithms. Other sources speak of camps, executions, and famine. Alaska and Hawaii are practically out of the conflict, declared political quarantine zones. No information gets out, no one goes in. Some say they've become refugees. Others believe they've been abandoned entirely. There is no longer an America. Only traces of it remain. Each region, each city, each road tells a different story. And if anyone still hopes things can be reunited, they will have to find a map with nothing left written on it. In the fractured remains of what was once a united nation, power is no longer centralized. The struggle for control is fought not just with weapons, but with ideology, survival instincts, and fractured loyalties. Each faction believes it holds the key to America's future, yet none can claim full dominion. The federal government, now confined mostly to the Northeast Consolidated Corridor and scattered military outposts, wages a desperate battle to maintain order. Under strict martial law, the Army patrols urban centers, enforcing curfews and restricting movement. Their resources are stretched thin, and morale is low. Soldiers face hostility not only from armed insurgents, but also from a population that increasingly views them as occupiers rather than protectors. Propaganda runs rampant on government-controlled media, painting the resistance as terrorists, while censoring dissenting voices. Opposing the government are countless local militias, each with their own causes and goals. Some fight to reclaim lost freedoms, others to protect their homes and families. These militias range from well-armed veterans to desperate civilians armed with whatever they can scavenge. Their tactics are guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run attacks, sabotage, ambushes. They exploit the federal forces' stretched lines and use intimate knowledge of local terrain to their advantage. While many militias claim to fight for justice or liberty, alliances are fragile, and internal disputes often erupt over leadership or ideology. Amid these battles for influence, criminal organizations have expanded their domains. With law enforcement fractured or non-existent, gangs and cartels control vital supply routes, black markets, and resources like fuel and ammunition. They are ruthless and pragmatic, making deals with both militias and government forces when it suits them. For many civilians caught in the crossfire, these groups are as much a threat as any soldier or insurgent. Yet, not all power struggles are violent. Pockets of civilians have banded together in self-organized communities focused on survival and mutual aid. These groups reject both the federal government's heavy-handed tactics and the chaos of militias and criminals. They build barricades, share scarce resources, and establish their own rules. Some of these communities attempt neutral ground, a fragile peace where survival trumps ideology. Their existence is a testament to resilience amidst collapse. The lines between resistance and control blur. Who is the oppressor? Who is the liberator? In many cases, the answer depends on who is telling the story and where you stand. What remains clear is that the fight for America's future is messy, brutal, and far from over. In the shattered remnants of a nation torn apart by conflict, everyday life is a constant battle against hunger, fear, and uncertainty. The chaos that rages outside has seeped into the fabric of existence, reshaping what it means to simply survive. Food shortages plague most regions. Supermarket shelves, once overflowing, are now barren. Farmers struggle to tend their fields amid skirmishes and lack of resources. Supply lines are fractured, making the transport of basic goods nearly impossible. Many have turned to foraging, hunting, or scavenging abandoned towns. Others barter what little they have: medicine, tools, fuel, just to feed their families another day. Healthcare has become a luxury few can afford. Pharmacies stand empty or locked down, and hospitals operate under constant threat. Medicines are scarce, and chronic illnesses go untreated. The wounded face grim prospects, often relying on makeshift treatments and community healers. Epidemics flare up in crowded shelters and unsanitary conditions, worsening the toll on vulnerable populations. Electricity flickers in and out, if it exists at all. Blackouts are the norm. Many communities rely on generators powered by dwindling fuel supplies, solar panels scavenged from forgotten rooftops, or simple candles and fires. The dark becomes both a refuge and a danger, concealing threats but also isolating people, cutting them off from information and contact. Information itself is a battlefield. Censorship and propaganda from the remnants of the government coexist with rumors and misinformation spreading through unofficial channels. Radio broadcasts, clandestine newsletters, and whispered word of mouth carry the fragmented news of the outside world. Trust is rare, and fear keeps people cautious about what to believe or who to trust. Yet, amid despair, moments of unexpected solidarity emerge. Strangers share food and shelter. Communities come together to protect the vulnerable, pooling skills and resources. Barriers between backgrounds and beliefs blur as survival demands cooperation. Small acts of kindness become lifelines, fueling hope even in the darkest hours. Life on the edge is exhausting, uncertain, and harsh, but it is also a testament to the human spirit's stubborn will to endure. Every day lived is a quiet victory, a defiance against the unraveling world. In the ruins of a once united nation, amidst the relentless chaos and fragmented power, new attempts at order and governance have begun to emerge. From the ashes of the old America, various groups seek to fill the vacuum, each with its vision of what stability should look like. Some factions aim to recreate familiar structures: local councils, militias enforcing law and order, and alliances between towns and cities. These efforts are often fragile, bound by necessity rather than trust. The constant threat of attack or betrayal looms over every negotiation, making compromise a delicate and risky endeavor. In other regions, new ideologies take root. Communities inspired by survivalism, radical libertarianism, or even cult-like belief systems impose strict rules to maintain cohesion and security. Some embrace authoritarian leadership, where a single figure commands obedience in exchange for protection. Others experiment with decentralized decision-making, relying on consensus but struggling to respond quickly to threats. However, these emergent new orders come with high costs. Freedoms are frequently curtailed. Dissent is suppressed to prevent fractures. Resources are tightly controlled, and outsiders often face suspicion or outright hostility. The promise of stability can quickly turn into a new form of oppression. Alliances are made and broken in rapid succession. What begins as cooperation can devolve into turf wars or power struggles. Loyalties shift, and in many cases, survival trumps ideology. Trust is the most precious and rare commodity. At the same time, the remnants of the federal government and military attempt to reassert influence in pockets where they still hold power. Their presence is a double-edged sword, a symbol of hope for reunification, but also a source of resentment and resistance from those who see them as invaders or relics of a failed past. The question remains, can any of these new orders survive the pressures of a fractured society? Or are they temporary shelters, destined to collapse under the weight of internal conflicts and external threats? In this new America, the concept of order itself is being rewritten, not by law books or constitutions, but by those who can command loyalty and wield power, however tenuous and transient it may be. As the United States fractures from within, the eyes of the world turn toward the chaos, each external power calculating its own gain. The Civil War at America's core is no longer just an internal struggle. It has become a global chessboard where foreign actors maneuver carefully, intervening, exploiting, or watching closely from the sidelines. Some countries offer aid, cloaked in humanitarian terms, sending supplies, medicine, or even advisors to factions aligned with their interests. Others provide weapons and intelligence, fueling proxy battles to expand their influence. These interventions are rarely neutral. They deepen divisions and prolong the conflict. Neighboring nations face the threat of spillover violence and refugee waves, forcing them to tighten borders and prepare for unrest. Some impose strict quarantines, isolating themselves, while others covertly support certain factions to create buffer zones or friendly regimes. Global corporations, too, play a significant role. Private military contractors and mercenaries operate openly, their allegiances driven by profit rather than ideology. They guard resources, enforce control over strategic areas, and tip the balance of power in contested zones. Meanwhile, rogue states and shadow organizations exploit the chaos. Cyber attacks cripple remaining infrastructure, misinformation campaigns sow confusion, and clandestine operatives destabilize regions to weaken opponents. The fractured United States, once a global superpower, is now vulnerable to external manipulation like never before. Alliances shift rapidly, old diplomatic ties unravel, and trust between international actors erodes. For the people caught in the crossfire, the outside threats mean not only increased violence, but also a future uncertain, where the conflict might stretch far beyond America's borders, dragging the world into a wider, more complex struggle. In the shadows of this new global reality, one question lingers. Who truly benefits when a superpower falls apart? Beneath the headlines and battle reports lies the true toll of the conflict, the devastating human cost that no strategy or ideology can justify. The Civil War has shattered lives, torn families apart, and left millions displaced within what was once the most powerful nation on Earth. Refugee camps, both improvised and overcrowded, dot the fractured landscape. Men, women, and children, forced from their homes by violence or scarcity, move in endless waves, searching for safety. These camps struggle to provide even the most basic necessities: food, clean water, medical care. Disease and malnutrition spread as fast as rumors and fear. Deaths are counted in the tens of thousands, but each number represents a story of loss. Entire communities vanish, swallowed by the chaos. Hospitals are overwhelmed or destroyed. Emergency responders are scarce. Without adequate medical supplies, treatable injuries become fatal, and chronic illnesses go unattended. Psychological trauma permeates the population. Children grow up in a world where gunfire replaces lullabies, where trust is a rare currency. Survivors grapple with nightmares, grief, and the constant anxiety of what tomorrow might bring. Mental health resources have all but disappeared, leaving scars invisible yet deeply felt. The social fabric is frayed. Neighborhoods once united now live in suspicion and fear. Long-standing friendships break under the strain of differing loyalties or desperate survival choices. Communities fracture as families are forced to relocate or lose loved ones. Yet, even in the darkest corners, small acts of humanity persist. Strangers share what little they have. Underground networks provide aid. These glimmers of solidarity are fragile but vital, a testament to resilience amid ruin. The war's legacy will not end when the last shot is fired. The physical and emotional wounds will take generations to heal. Entire regions may never fully recover, scarred by loss, displacement, and memories too painful to forget. In the story of this fractured America, the human cost is the heaviest burden, a stark reminder that behind every conflict are lives forever changed. The land is scarred beyond recognition. Once bustling cities lie in ruins, glass shattered, buildings reduced to rubble, streets abandoned and silent. Infrastructure is broken, and with it, the lifelines that sustained millions. Millions of lives have been lost or irrevocably changed. Families torn apart, communities shattered. The social fabric of a nation is frayed, hanging by threads worn thin through years of unrelenting conflict. Beyond the visible destruction lies a deeper wound, the psychological toll on survivors, the collective trauma that echoes through empty homes and desolate neighborhoods. The echoes of gunfire and sirens have faded, but the memories remain, haunting those who survived and warning those who remain. Amid the rubble, signs of life stubbornly persist. Small pockets of humanity gather, seeking to piece together remnants of normalcy. Gardens grow in backyard plots. Wells are dug and cleaned. Children's laughter occasionally pierces the quiet. Fragile alliances form, fragile enough to shatter with the slightest tremor of distrust. Tentative negotiations take place behind closed doors, sometimes brokered by elders, sometimes by those who once fought side by side. Aid workers, often risking their lives, bring scarce supplies, food, and medicine into beleaguered enclaves. Yet hope is tempered by reality. The wounds run deep, and the trust that must be rebuilt is fragile. The risks of renewed violence loom like dark clouds, reminding all that peace is not simply given, but earned and maintained through vigilance and sacrifice. What comes next is a question without a clear answer. Who will rise from the ashes to lead a fractured nation? Will the United States, as once known, survive intact? Or will the seams of division tear it into permanent fragments? Regions once united by common purpose now speak different languages of survival and ideology. Borders have shifted, loyalties fractured. The global stage watches with bated breath, aware that the fallout will not remain contained within national boundaries. The shifting alliances, the fragile ceasefires, and the whispered deals in the shadows all paint a picture of a nation at a crossroads. Will a new order emerge, one based on collaboration and renewal, or will chaos claim the future? The only certainty is uncertainty itself. To all who hear this broadcast, the story we have told is not just history, it is a warning. Division sows destruction, hatred consumes. The fragile threads that hold societies together are easily broken, but they can be mended if nurtured with care, understanding, and solidarity. The dangers remain: unchecked power, extremism, and the scars of conflict threaten to plunge us back into darkness. Vigilance is not a choice, but a necessity. We must remember the lessons carved by fire and blood, and strive to build a future where such devastation is never repeated. This is not just a broadcast. It is a call to awareness, to action, to humanity. As this transmission fades, the story lingers, unfinished, unfolding, uncertain. In the silence that follows, listen closely to the heartbeat of a nation struggling to breathe again. Between ruin and rebirth lies a narrow path, paved with hope and shadowed by the past. The future remains a question mark, suspended in time. And so we ask, in this fragile moment, what will we choose? Peace or conflict? Unity or division? Despair or hope? The answer lies not in the past, but in the hands of those who still dare to dream. This is Frequency 404 signing off for now.